Perfect. We're going to get started here. Just again, to make sure that everyone is on the same page here, even though there's going to be more of an emphasis in the webinar for Canada, because this is brand new for Canada, the material is going to be relevant for everyone in North America. So if you're from the U.S., you'll see a little more emphasis in Canada, but that's only because affiliate solar is brand new for us, very exciting, and we wanted everyone to be aware of this particular opportunity. The other thing is, if you have questions, you can type in the questions. And remember that the key principle in being successful with Tranont is that we all learn to be able to be independent, in the sense that if we really want to get into solar energy as a primary focus within the Tranont opportunity, we ourselves need to not contact our upline leaders for questions to be answered. There's a 1-800 number, and you can acquaint yourself with the owners, with the staff at Solar Energy, and become the expert, because none of us can become experts at everything that Tranont will be able to offer. But different ones of us can specialize, and I just felt, because this is so new for Canada, I wanted to get this message out this evening. Now, this is being recorded as well, but I always tell people, the ones that are on live, they get a follow-up email with materials that no one else gets. The recording is nice, but the material you get along with the webinar is really valuable material, because I really want people to always value the importance of coming on a live webinar. I think that's just really important to have. So we saw this at Vegas, and some of you might have seen this already, but that's okay. I just want to really emphasize, if you're going to look at solar as a primary focus. When I say a primary, I don't mean the primary. The primary is our core services. But when it comes to generating additional income, this could be one of the things you'll focus in on, and it's a great opportunity. Well, solar energy, of course, it's a real trend in the marketplace. So there's new installs every 2 minutes. If we were doing this 5 years ago, there's nothing. Solar energy would not even be possible in the sense of being able to do for households what we're able to do with this today. So this is very new and, of course, very popular. Now, there is a compensation difference. The system of compensation for the referrals and everything else we do is an ongoing residual as long as the contract is in place. With solar energy, it's different. It's a cash commission up front, and plus it generates for 12 months PV, which is personal volume if you're the commission provider, if you're the referral provider, and GV for the upline, right? So if all of us do some solar energy, it can make a big difference. Now, this is what I've come to realize. There's quite a few people on our lifeline here in Alberta that are underemployed or unemployed, hoping to build the Tranont network really quickly so they can be full-time. And, of course, that might be 3 months or 6 months or even a 1-year project to get there. And in the meantime, this becomes a way of making larger amounts of cash while you're building your network. I want you to think about that, right? Because the other services are more slow builds. I mean, you're creating residual, but it's ongoing kind of as long as the contract is in place. That's very attractive. This is different, and it's good different, because we can make some significant cash commissions up front as we refer solar energy. So a little bit about solar energy. The company we have an association with, it's Affiliate Solar is the name of the company, and very competitive pricing, great new technology panels, of course, high quality components, 30, 60-day installs, and they feature zero out-of-pocket for the person that's installing this on their house, based on financing, and of course, that's very, very attractive, and we'll get into that a little more. And then they have system monitoring. So a couple other features you should familiarize yourself. There's an 8 to 15% home value increase when you do a solar system install. So there's kind of a range there to be aware of, but fixed price versus variable in the power bills. In other words, if you do an install for the next 10 years, it might be 8, it might be 12, depending on where you're doing the install in the states or provinces, but you're paying for a certain period of time, but you're locked into a price that more or less is reflective of your current electrical bill. So whatever you're paying right now for your electrical bill, with Solar Affiliate will be typical of what you're paying in the payment plan per month towards the install of that solar panel. After it's paid, you eliminate the power bill for life. Now, of course, these panels don't last forever, but the projected life is 30 to 40 years, so there's a long period of time that these panels can be providing free electricity. So it protects against increases, and this is very, very important, especially here in Alberta, because they have some very significant electric prices, increased projections that we have here. But those are some of the key features. So some of the different things we can do commercial rooftop solar. So these are a couple of examples. Just give me 1 second here because somebody is signaling me that, just give me a second here. I have to unpause. I see. Thanks. So I'm unpausing the slide. So let me just go back. I apologize for that. The screen was frozen. But these are some of the key things. Solar made easier, competitive pricing, 30 to 60-day installs, black on black panels, zero out-of-pocket, highest quality components, system monitoring. So these are the things that make it very, very attractive. Sorry, I had that screen frozen. I think I'm okay now. Everyone can see me okay? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And those are really important things to remember. Now, remember, we're not experts. We don't have to know all the details. We're referral providers, very similar, but these are some of the basic things you want to be able to explain to people. And these are some examples. So this is commercial rooftops. So this is maybe a person that owns apartment buildings. He does an install, and this replaces the electrical costs that are typical. And this would be a solar farm. And we're going to be talking about this because in Alberta, there's huge subsidies for installing these kinds of installations on farms. There's another example of a commercial shade structure. A golf course, of course, so there's quite a few different examples. These are small commercial installs. You can do industrial installs. Huge industrial installs on massive warehouses are possible as well. Just one example, a residential roof mount, and this is in Utah where there's a projected savings of about $102,000 over 30 years. Now in Utah they're paying quite a high price for their electricity. So this would be quite typical of Ontario as well. Ontario is paying about 2.5 times for their electricity as we are in Alberta. So the savings when you do a solar panel over the 30 years can be quite typical of this. For us in Alberta, maybe more like $50,000 to $70,000 savings. But that's fantastic for people to think about, and they're exchanging their power bill for solar payment. So when you're talking about, these are a few things to be aware of. Is again, I'm not the expert. If you have any questions that I can't immediately answer today, the best solution is the 1-800 number and be able to call Solar Affiliate and get the questions answered. But typical 8 to 15% increase in home values. But you have to be working with people who are aware of the trends, right? The green appraisers and green agents. So some people, they just are dismissive of this. And there's a practical reason. If you went with solar panels 5-10 years ago, they were, in many instances, a nuisance. They didn't produce anywhere near enough electricity to cover off the electrical needs of a household, right? So the value of the solar panels has changed dramatically in the last 5 years. So a person has to be on the cutting edge of what's going on with electrical panels and solar panels to be able to appreciate the increase in value. So just be aware of that not every real estate agent is going to say yes to this. It's one who is familiar with the trends and familiar with solar panel technology. So a few questions before I forget, before we get into the snow melts off. Here in Calgary, we're in the hail alley, so more hail here than anywhere else in the world in Calgary and region. And of course, a lot of people are wondering, do those solar panels all break? They're more like plastic rather than glass, and so this, it's not that they're 100% indestructible, but they're not easily broken as if they were glass. So just be aware of that. And of course, a typical household insurance, you just add that. And so this would be the type of thing if you had really, really heavy hail, it could cause damage. But in most instances, the minor hail that would, for example, cause windows to break, sidings to be dented, would not destroy these solar panels. But so snow melts off within 24 to 72 hours. It actually happens a lot faster than that if you have a steeper roof, and most people have steeper roofs, so this particular person has a relatively flat roof line. So I'm not going to get into panel options, racking options, inverter options. I'll just show you a few pictures. But, you know, again, there's the latest technology. So you have a high-quality manufacturing. You have, you know, roof mounting as well as rack mounting. And so you have see them examples. So reverse tilt roof and ground mount, and the different ways of mounting these panels. You don't have to concern yourself with that, but just so you're aware, on a warehouse, they can put the panels that you see in the top left-hand corner on a roof and gather a lot of solar power. And of course, they can do that in different ways. You don't have to concern yourself with the detail, because we'll explain to you how it works when you're getting a quote. You just have to fill out an application form, describe the building, and they'll take it from there. So the solar industry, a little bit of information that I think is really interesting is the trend line. So again, if you're talking to a realtor that's been around for a while, he might have got started in the year 2000, and solar panels, of course, they weren't producing anywhere near the kind of electricity they are on a per square foot basis. So you know, it's lately that you've seen this huge growth in the marketplace. A couple of reasons. In the U.S., for example, they now have tax credits to encourage the install of solar panels, but the solar panels are also much more efficient, and so it's not unusual for a house to have solar panels installed and have a 100% replacement of their electricity, which is very attractive, right? So a few more things on the trend line, and I hope this is not boring, because if you're going to jump into this, for me, I like to see trends, and I need to understand why the trends are, to decide if this is just a fad or if it's an established trend. If it's an established trend, it represents a huge opportunity, right? So this is really important from my perspective, doing the research and looking through this information. I've been able to conclude it's a fantastic story of an established trend, and we're at the very beginning phase of that in most parts of the country, in most places of North America. So, you know, you can see, for example, in the second quarter of 2015, there's 1,393 megawatts installed. You may say, well, I don't know what that means. I'll show you in a second. And so over the 18 months, residential and utility scale markets led the way, and you can see there's a certain amount of megawatts. But solar industry supplied 40% of all new 2015 electrical generation capacity. So, you know, that's pretty amazing, right? So 40% of all the new generation, that includes like natural gas generation, wind power generation, of course the other installations that are conventional. This is huge. So you know that if 40% of what's new is being supplied with solar energy, that's pretty fantastic. And now you can see the number, 5,000 megawatts of installed solar capacity projected over the first half of 2015. So they expect that by the end of the year, 8,000, you know, additional. So there's a huge trend line. Every single quarter it gets bigger and bigger. Okay. Enough power for 4.6 million average Americans' homes are produced with solar energy. Okay, so over 135 installations in the first half, 135,000 installations the first half of 2015. And 784,000 in homes and businesses have now gone solar. So that's huge. A new solar project installed every 2 minutes, and just talks about the growth. And of course, this line here says the ITC. That's the tax credit that is being provided in the U.S. That's made this super attractive in the U.S. And of course, we have certain credits and a province-by-province basis here in Alberta. So, yeah, so anyway, this points to the fact that you can now do electrical installs with solar energy as low as 0.05 or 5 cents per kilowatt hour. And, you know, that's very, very competitive. I think the lowest price we can buy our electricity for right now here in Alberta is about 3.5 cents. 4 cents, and that's because natural gas prices are extremely low. So we're getting extremely good deals right now. But, you know, this is incredible. This was 5 times higher just 3 or 4 years ago, right? So it's now affordable, and it's because it's affordable, you're going to see more and more people do the install. If you're in the U.S., this is kind of interesting. Of course, California led the way for all kinds of reasons. They had their own statewide tax credit. So tax credits helped to produce installs, but now you have tax credit for the whole country in the U.S. But what's going up in Canada? Well, this is kind of interesting. Here in Alberta, as most of you know, Tranont's very, very strong in Alberta, and there's a pretty high unemployment rate. We're going through the worst recession in 40 years in Alberta right now, so we're really going through it. But, you know, the fact is our government, which is a bit of a left-leaning government, is phasing out coal and then adding in carbon tax. And so the downside of all that is we expect our electrical costs to go up 2 to 3 times over the next few years. So we're going to go up to match about the price of what they're paying in Ontario. Ontario is already paying all kinds of high prices for electricity. So you're ready to go in Ontario full speed ahead. Probably the best place in North America right now to do solar energy is in Ontario because again, the payoff is very, very fast. When you're doing a solar energy install, it could be as little as 7 or 8 years to pay off those panels, whereas here in Alberta, it might be more like 12 or 13 years. So, but, you know, again, that's changing very fast here in Alberta because when the prices go up, people are going to start saving a lot of money. Coal energy being phased out, that's the story, of course, all across North America. Carbon tax, they're basically charging us extra if our electricity is being produced by natural gas versus clean energy. That's the theory behind it, pushing more and more people towards clean energy. So Ontario already has pretty high electricity costs, and solar allows you to fix your energy costs at current rates. So this is how it works. You know, again, this is a general kind of objective that Affiliate Solar has. Their goal is to do a quote for a client, a customer. They'll take a close look at the house, kind of an estimate of the best way to install panels on which roof, how many panels, that kind of thing, what the cost of the install is going to be. And then their goal is to finance that install so that it more or less matches what the customer is currently paying for their electricity. Okay, so if they're currently paying a low cost for their electricity, it's going to be a bigger challenge for Affiliate Solar to do that. So the period of time for the payoff might be a bit longer, right, in Alberta than it is in Ontario. There's going to be variables from province to province. So I really want to encourage all of us, if you're going to be in this business, allow yourself to develop the thinking of a business person rather than the commoner or the ordinary person, right? The ordinary person, because we all need to learn about the nuances from province to province, and some of these differences, you know, it's got nothing to do with Affiliate Solar. It's just the fact electricity is cheaper right now in Alberta, so it might take 12, 13 years to do the payoff in this province. Now, can you, as a customer, say, you know what, I'll pay a few extra dollars so I can pay it off faster? You can do that because, you know, in anticipation of the fact that electricity costs are going to go up on January the 1st, 2017 because of the carbon tax, right? But that's up to the person. The customer will have that conversation with Affiliate Solar. They're going to get, I'm going to show you an actual example of a quote so you understand what it looks like. And it's an Alberta quote. It's quite different than what you'd have in Utah or in Ontario, because in Utah and Ontario, electrical costs are higher, so the payoff period is shorter. Those are some of the variables you're dealing with. Okay, now, very exciting though, because in Alberta, we have huge credits, government incentives for farm installs. That is, they're looking for farms to do extra power generation that can be fed into the grid. So farmers can, instead of doing a windmill install, they can do a solar farm install, and they get a credit for that, and we're able to be in that business as well. Okay, so A lot of people are asking about battery storage systems, and this is not offered with Affiliate Solar yet because they made a reason. There's a good reason for that. It's simply because the battery systems that are right now available are not sufficiently of high quality that they want to promote it. Very, very soon, companies like Tesla are doing battery development, and this will be widely available in the marketplace, a much higher quality battery with longer projected life, where it starts to make sense to have battery storage systems. Now, what we do have in places like Ontario and Alberta is the ability to sell excess production into the grid. So it's not being wasted, right? In other places, you might not have the ability to sell in the grid. You can get your own battery power for a period of time. Just know that Affiliate Solar, as soon as the really good batteries become available, they're going to add that to the equation, and you can go off grid. If people are really interested in going off grid, they have to find their own batteries. Affiliate Solar does not help us with that, but that's the reason, right? The reason is they don't consider the current battery packs that are available to be, cost effective enough. They want to wait for the new battery systems that are coming out to be available and promote that. Solar in Canada. So why we're so excited, a couple things. Number one, this is the first of services we can refer to households, right? So we don't have, the cable and internet and some of the services that you have in the U.S. But I want to emphasize something. In getting to know Craig Cotter and John Singh and the others from the team that came from the other company that does referral of services, I had a conversation with one of their team members. I forgot his name, but he's the pastor that spoke in Vegas who also does the business. And great guy. We're going to have him as a guest one of these Saturdays. But it was just fantastic what he shared with us. And he said that in his other company, I won't mention names out of courtesy, but his other company, it was mostly referral of residential services. He said, I love Tranont. He says, we have all these business accounts that we can refer. It's way better. And I just found perspective really interesting. I found it really interesting because a lot of people think it's going to be way better when residential comes, right? And it's interesting that a person that's been in the business for over 13 years is telling us that no, what we have with Tranont right now already is better. And, yes, it's going to add a little bit in terms of income when we can do household services like cell phone, cable, and internet. But the big picture is we have something that the competitors don't have. We have so many kind of businesses that we can refer that are relevant for businesses. So just an interesting perspective. And I really want to challenge everyone, to acquire a glass half full attitude when you look at Tranont. Tranont's not perfect. It's, far from perfect. But, man, what these owners have delivered so far in Canada is very, very impressive. From a business person perspective, it is. And where they want to go is very exciting. And I have no doubt in terms of their goal to do that right and to do that well. And so this is the first that we have for households. And it's fantastic because this is a bigger kind of commission that pays, right? So it's the first of household services for Canadians. So it's not just businesses but households. As of right now, those that were willing to provide quotes where they're willing to pay cash, okay? So certain associates said, yeah, I'll pay cash for an install. And how a lot of these associates were doing this, they had a line of credit on their house, so a home line credit, a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, they call that. I don't know if that's the same terminology they use in the U.S., but they got a loan against their home, right? And so they didn't need to wait for the lender to be in place in Canada. And so they have, for those associates that are able to do that kind of install cash quotes, you should have already received it. And if you haven't, don't contact me, please, okay? Don't contact your upline, contact Affiliate Solar and ask them on the status of your application, right? So cash quotes were prioritized because they want to get those installs doing. The other thing I want all of you, again, is as Canadians, this is very important. We're getting started with brand new contractors here in Canada, and so Affiliate Solar is doing their very best to hire the best quality contractors they can find. But we all know you don't know for sure until you've experienced the workmanship of the contractor, right? So the reason they wanted us as associates to be the first to do the installs is if there's any kind of glitch, and there always is, you know, that's a business person understands that, because when we're getting started with something new, there are certain glitches. We want to, as business persons, work with Kim at Affiliate Solar and resolve the glitches. And we want to, for example, identify the best of installers, right? So there's a lot of installers that are telling us they're good. Well, we're going to find out who the good ones are, and it might be that you end up with not the best installer. And again, Affiliate Solar is doing their very best to do the background checks and hire the best, but we won't know for sure. And once we have a few installs behind us, we'll be able to know who to work with, right? So again, they haven't asked me to tell you this, but I know as a business person, this is brand new in Canada. There's going to be some glitches, and the reason they asked us as associates is that because they're assuming that you're big enough as a business person to understand there might be a glitch, and if there's a glitch, you'll work with Affiliate Solar to get that glitch ironed out, to make sure that as we roll it out in a bigger way into the marketplace, that we can go full speed ahead, okay? So 100% financing will be available in August. And the goal is somewhere between August 1st and August 15th that they'll start doing approvals. But the person that's doing the application has to have good credit, right? So at least acceptable credit. They don't have to have anything perfect credit, but if they have no credit, they're not going to get a loan, right? So again, that's not Affiliate Solar's fault. That's how business is done. If you buy a new vehicle and you find out that you don't have the credit to buy the vehicle, you don't blame GM. You don't blame the car dealership. It's a loan arrangement, right? So there has to be credit adequate to do the loan. So just be aware of that, right? So be very professional on that. If people don't have the greatest credit, Tranont has a solution. Become a Tranont associate, or you can even acquire the core services, and credit improvement is part of the equation, right? So again, be aware of that. 100% financing will be available, but what's urgently required is more associate referrals ASAP. So if you have a house where you can do a quote on your house, that would be fantastic. Or if you have a close friend, a close family member that will go ahead and do a referral on the basis of that being, again, a kind of a beta test. We would like to do a few more of these, and that will really help us to make sure that we have the right people that we're working with in every part of the country. Customer referrals will be accepted as of August the 1st, and this is huge. Of course, there's in Ontario, for example, you do have grants for every category of install. In Alberta, we do have commercial grants, but I don't have enough clarity to be able to talk about it. What I do know is I've done a lot of research on the agriculture referrals. They're ideal for grants and incentives. So that I'll show you in a second. So if you look at everything in place, there's a trend line here, brand new here in Canada, and we need some more of these referrals from you as associates. So in your handout section, there's a form, Canadians, you can complete that, and you'll be able to, with that form, get started the application process for yourself. So it's perfect. It couldn't be better, and I just wanted to show you an example of a quote that took place, a residential quote here, and this was shown last Saturday by one of our associates from Edmonton, and so he did a great presentation last week, but he had to do it very, very quick, and I'm doing a little more detail here. So basically what he did is he provided in the application form his address, and he didn't have to provide any photographs of his house, no blueprints or anything like that, because what they did is they did this is with Google Maps. They have the 3D capacity to take a look at that house and see where that house is located, and they were able to determine where trees are possibly blocking and where the options are, best locations for the solar panels. And you see the best locations. This is right here is the north roof, and that would not be a good location. This is a south-facing roof, east-facing roof. Why was the west face not so good? Well, because of the trees, right? So with the Google Maps technology, they can look at the roof line and the size of the roof and make a determination of where the ideal install is and what the ideal configuration is, even based on what's all going on the roof, right? So pretty sophisticated, and it does not require anyone on site being able to look at that house. They can do that just by way of that Google Maps system. So when they do a proposal, this is what they're showing a person. This is page 2 of that page. This install will save you almost $58,000 over the lifetime of the system. They project a lifetime of 30 years. The solar panels are under warranty for 25 years, but they're projected easily to be 30 to 40-year lifetime. So they're using the lower of that number, 30 years. Warranty is 25 years, so keep that in mind again. So they then show, and this is again really amazing because they have detailed information based on your exact geographical location on the number of hours of sunlight at that location on average. In other words, how much cloud cover typical, how much daylight typical through each month of the year. And they'll be able to show that person that during certain times of the year, you're going to need to tap into electricity from the system. So wherever you're getting your electricity from right now, you'll have to get the electricity from certain months, and that's okay. Other times of the year, you're producing more than's required. So they show the person in detail what their total consumption will be from the grid. And in this case, they don't have an actual example here of sales into the grid, but in Alberta, we'll have that ability to sell back into the grid. So this is the customized solution, a little more detail. And so keep this number in mind. If you see that 7.83, that is the system size based on the size of the panels or the number of panels that they have, and then the annual production that's projected based on the geographical location. So it's very easy to understand. And this is just a great example, because we've erased all the detailed information as to who this is. We're going to be able to put this into your handout section, and you'll be able to take a look. So you'll generate 98.56% of your energy from solar, right? So there's a little bit of a percentage, 1.5% you're going to have to get from natural gas sources here in Alberta, whatever it is. And so that gives people a clear picture. And you're, again, for those who really want to understand in tangible terms the value of what you're doing, from a point of view of the environment, you'd have to plant 3,700 trees to match up what those solar panels are doing in terms of cleaning the environment. So that's a pretty cool way of looking at it. Or driving 340,000 fewer miles per year, so that's about 10 cars off the road in Alberta. I guess the North American average is a little bit less than that. In Alberta, it's about 35. Oh, no, it's just 34,000 miles. Wow, okay. Yeah, it's probably more like 15 cars in Alberta, 31 on average. So it really gives people a sense of the value. Can you imagine a single solar install is the equivalent of taking 31 cars off the road? That's pretty huge. So the cost is projected right here, $27,000, and so they have here just a projection of how many years it's going to take for that install to to be able to be paid for. It's on the next page, and I don't have that next page, but it's about, I think it was 15, no, it was 13 years if they used financing for that install to be paid for, right? So that's how that looks. So again, you can get a sense of a picture of what the average person with a cash install, and they're going to do a financing plan where, typical, maybe it's going to take 13 years for this to be paid off here in Alberta. And Ontario, it might be more like something like 8 or 9 years because of the difference of electrical cost. People have the option, this is an option, to be able to, if they want, accelerate the payment, right? Or get their own financing, get a HELOC, that kind of thing, and be more in control, okay? So now the last part I wanted to show you, this is, there we go, grants for farmers in Alberta. And I think you could say this is quite similar for not just farmers, but commercial installs, industrial installs in Ontario and certain other provinces. We're gathering information. If you're in BC, you just have to do some research to see if there's any grants currently available. And if there isn't, I think we can safely project that very soon there will be a Canada-wide grant system for solar installs as well. That is expected. So if it's good now, it's going to be great soon, right? So what is available? Farmers are defined as having over $10,000 worth of farm income, right? So you can't just own a chunk of land with a cow on it. It has to be positive $10,000 production, which is pretty small, pretty tiny. You qualify as a farm. And you get $50,000 per applicant is available through the program. So this basically is allowing you, if you look at the next number here, will cover up to 25% of the project cost. So if you do the math, that's a $200,000 install. So about a $200,000 install is what can be financed in the sense of a $50,000 grant being made available. And this would typically produce way more electricity than what the farmer needs. So what they would do with the electricity, be able to sell in the grid, it becomes a cash flow item. Or if they're running a dairy farm or a chicken farm or a pig farm or wherever there's lots of electrical production needs, it can replace their electrical needs, and that's the attraction. Excuse me. So that must be grid tied, so they're not allowed to, with this grant, to be off grid, because what they want is the extra electricity production to go into the grid that can then be bought by others who are trying to lower their carbon footprint, that kind of stuff. So there's a kind of a complicated reason for it, but they're looking for farmers to produce the electricity, and instead of a windmill, there's a certain downside with those big turbines. Birds and bats and those kinds of things are getting knocked off with those big turbines. I think this is the cleanest of clean energy is solar energy, and so you have to be tied in the grid to get this particular grant. And you must have manufacturer warranties. We have a 25-year warranty on ours, so that's pretty good. And must be installed by a contractor, and that's exactly what we do. You don't get to install your own panels. So I'm just showing you these things so that you're aware that we're doing everything exactly correctly, and this will be very quickly available because we're in the process of getting Affiliate Solar registered as an installer here in Alberta. And so you'll be able to go to farmers and present them with the idea of creating cash flow by doing a solar farm install on their farms, and that's hugely attractive. So I wanted to again, just remind you, it pays generous upfront commissions plus group volume points. It's now available in Canada. So a typical home in Alberta, and I found out today, I spoke with Kim, and she said this does not change from province to province or state to state, but we get paid with solar in the currency of our country. Okay, so that's something different. You just be aware that with the 400, this is typical cash commissions that are earned on a install. Typical home is between $400 and $1,000 cash commission. Or $180 per kilowatt. So that one number that I had you write down, 7.83, if you multiply 7.83 times 180, you'll understand the total amount that is being budgeted for that house in terms of commission. Okay, so half is paid immediately in the form of cash, upfront cash commission. The other half is, if you do this, is being turned into personal volume points and split evenly over 12 months. Okay, so that translates to 30 to 85 personal volume points. So I don't want to lose you all here on this, but just to be able to follow along on the math, if you see that $180 per kilowatt is how much they're paying. So I'm just going to open up my calculator here. I've got a brand new computer, so it's taking a little bit, brand new phone, I should say. Just give me a second. There we go. Yeah, I just wanted to open up the calculator. So if you multiply on that quote that I showed you, 7.83 times 180, that equals $1,409. You divide that by 2, that means that person's getting a $704 upfront cash commission for that particular house that you saw, okay? $704. So if you talk to that person about the amount of work that takes place for a referral, that's typical. Okay, now in the early stages, you're learning, you're spending more time figuring out how to read now, how to do all these things. But a typical referral is about maybe 3 hours of work at the most, right? So you do the math in terms of how much you're getting paid for this referral. It's incredible. You're getting paid on average between $400 and $1,000 cash commission up front. In the example that I showed you, it was $704. And then the rest is being, that $704 is being split over 12 months. And so if you divide that over 12 months, 704 over 12, I did the math wrong here, divided by 12 is equal to be 58, right? So 58 personal volume points. So every one of us, when we're members, associates with our core services, we're producing 100 personal volume points. By doing our own house, we'd be adding about another 58 personal volume points. And if our team is doing the same thing, you're generating personal volume points. This translates with every one of us doing 2 referrals, just 2 this year. We would more than double our production as a team without recruiting a single new person to our teams, right? We would more than double easily. And this is by far the best kind of referral that you can do that would do 2 things for us at the same time. Number one, we would be able to generate cash commissions, which a lot of us need, right? So you're building a network. Be nice to get an extra, let's say you do 2 referrals this month of August, that's an extra $1,500 cash. And then you're also generating group volume points for a whole year off those 2 referrals, right? So that's the reason why I think this is such a fantastic opportunity, is the cash commission is upfront. Whereas if I did national processing or Jive, it's a smaller cash commission that's being paid every month for the life of that contract. This is a large cash commission being paid up front. That's the difference. So I'm hoping I made that clear, and I know probably I lost some people with trying to explain turning that, the half of the cash commission turns into group volume points, but I'll cover that one more time. But you're going to do applications. And if you're doing your own house, use the forms that we have in the handout section. Okay, so if you're doing your own home, use those forms. We have homes in the U.S. or forms for the U.S. and forms for Canada. Whereas if you want to start doing referrals, don't use the form. Use the app. I'm telling you, the Tranont Builder app is unbelievable. They have a great video you can use, send to people. You're going to be able to use the app for doing the full referrals. A lot of people will say, well, how do I upload the utility you have to show utilities a utility bill. You just take a picture of it and then click enter, and it goes right into the application system on your app. So the app is perfect. You just, again, take a photograph of the utility bill. It has all the information on it that's required. You just fill out the monthly bill for 12 months. It's right on the app. It's self-explanatory. Just look at the app, practice with your own house. Your own house might be an extra, few hours of learning, but after that, you're going to be a smooth operator. After that, you're going to be able to talk to people and say, like, let's get an estimate. I mean, there's no downside, but you're probably going to be paying for your solar install about the same thing if you're paying for your electricity. We're doing full financing, so there's no cash outlay. You just switch up your monthly bill from your electricity to a payment plan that pays off over between 8 and 12 years, but you're protected from price increases. And we know here all across Canada there's going to be increases. In Alberta there's going to be big increases. And plus, of course, after 10 years or so, you own the panels and your electricity is free, right? So that's the picture I want you to see. And again, typical in-house in Alberta, our experience based on several applications we now have in hand. I didn't like trying to tell people what it's going to look like without actually having examples. So we have associates that have given us their examples, $400 to $1,000 cash commission for 3 hours of work, okay? Plus group volume points for the whole team, and so on average that 30 to 85 group volume points per household. So any questions now? I'm going to switch to questions. I think that's the whole presentation, and see what we have for questions. Lots of them here, actually. Well, that's the biggest. Let me just open this up because there's so many questions here. Again, these printables are in the handout section, but the good news is because you joined us, you're going to get a copy of those documents, because I know some people are struggling with getting the handout section. Well, how it works, when you see the PDF icon, you do need to do something called a download, okay? You can't just right-click and try to get that thing out of there. It's a download that you have to do. After the webinar is over, you're going to have this stay open for a while, so you'll be able to do that. But we're going to send them to you as well. So again, a lot of people commenting about, about the slides being stuck. We got that problem fixed. So in Quebec, prices are about 8 cents average. So you're going to get good results in Quebec. I don't know what kind of grants are available, but again, just do a little bit of research about solar energy grants for farms or for commercial operations. And so here in Alberta, we don't have anything available for residents, but we did discover for farmers they have a fantastic grant. So that's really important. So can we bring installers on board is another question. Yes, if you have people who are installers, I believe what they're looking for is master electricians. So there has to be a certain, technical people, master electricians. Again, speak to Affiliate Solar and say, we understand that you might be looking for people. They don't need any more names in Alberta, by the way. We have a huge long list of people in Alberta. The unemployment rate is high, so we're going to put a lot of people to work. Our goal is 1,000 solar application installs here in Alberta in the month of August, so that'll be a fun goal to set, right? And again, we're not aware of any grants, but if you're in Quebec, just do a little bit of research and find out. And this is what we need you to do. Again, work with Affiliate Solar, because if you are aware of a grant, let them know. Don't let me know. I don't need to know. Affiliate Solar needs to know, so that every person that phones them who comes from Quebec, they'll be able to tell them the same answer. There is a grant available. Here's the link. This is the detail for the grant, right? They want to know the detail in every single province. So if you want to get your province going, help them by doing some of that research. And somebody else asked about paying off their own solar, and yes, if you do your own install in lieu of the cash payment, you can, and there's again they'll pay down the amount that is the loan on your install. So that can happen very quickly. I think it's 15 to 20 referrals on average in the U.S., and the system is paid for. You have electricity free for the rest of your life. But not only is your electricity free, do the math, you're increasing the value of your house between 8 and 15%. So if you've got, for example, a $300,000 house, you can estimate that the value of your house has gone up at least $30,000 to $50,000 because of a solar panel install, right? So plus your electricity is free. So that's the attraction, is get it paid off. With about 15 to 20 installs, you can get it free. Will Ontario residents be able to sell power back into the grid? My understanding is yes, but the answer actually, I don't know for sure because I'm not the expert. Affiliate Solar will be able to answer the question. I know in Alberta we could sell on the grid, and I was told reliably that's the case in Ontario. But if you're going to sell in Ontario, work with Affiliate Solar, get the details so that you're always accurately providing the information. Now, when you're selling in the grid, it's never quite as exciting as what you think, because whatever you're paying for your electricity, when you're selling it, you're not getting paid anything close to what you're paying for it, right? So you get a little bit of money for selling it in the grid. You pay a lot more for buying it from the grid. So, but it's nice because at least without batteries, if you can sell in the grid, you can cover that off. Yes, somebody made out the PV split is not actual dollars. That's exactly correct. So what Tranont does, remember that they always are getting paid cash from the company that they're partnering with. And in this case, it's Affiliate Solar. So on a referral that's typical in North America, they're getting paid, this is Tranont is getting paid $800 to $1,000, or pardon me, yeah, between $800 and $2,000 for the referral. Okay, between $800 and $2,000. So, in most instances, you're going to get started with Tranont by getting paid 10%, right? Not with solar. They're going to start you right away. You're going to get the 30% kind of thing. So what will happen here is if Tranont's getting $800 to $2,000, you're going to get, as a referral provider, $400 to $1,000 up front, right? Depending on the size, so anywhere from $400 to $1,000. The rest goes into the network, right? Because the network also gets paid the upline and it's the group volume point system that produces the payment into the system. So they've done the math. They're dedicating $400 to $1,000 for the comp plan, for all the bonuses within the comp plan, right? So you don't get cash, but it generates personal volume points. If you have 100 people who each do a solar panel, for you, that's going to turn into, 3,000 group volume points, or maybe more, maybe 8,000 group volume points, just by having 100 people on your team doing solar panels. So it's going to translate into income if your team is taught to do this. Everyone should be able to do a couple of referrals, and even just with a couple of referrals, we can all go up dramatically in terms of our incomes through the point system, okay? But that's separate from the cash commission. The cash commission is the part that's very attractive, and you can get that immediately. Some people are going after 10 installs per month, and you can do the math. That's a nice income while they're building the network. A full-time person can easily find 10 places to do installs right now in the market here in Ontario, Alberta. I can speak firsthand. That's very achievable, so you can make good income up front, but also keep in mind it takes 60 to 90 days to get paid. So you don't get paid the moment the person says yes and signs the contract. You get paid after the install is completed, okay? Can they install in the winter? Yes, but weather is a factor. And so extreme cold, the answer is no. Snow, the answer is no. But certain parts of the country, we have, kind of breaks in the winter that allow some of this business activity. Installs in Calgary can happen in February, March, and April, and not just in the summer. So yes, winter installs in BC are possible as well as most of Ontario. Okay, somebody says, I don't understand the PV, and Andrea was texting me and said, please don't get bogged down with those PV details. What that is, every contract, when I do a referral, I do the referral. I get paid cash for the referral. So on average, if you do the referral, you're going to get paid between $400 and $1,000 cash, okay? The rest gets paid into the network. And the way the network does it is they turn it into group volume points, right? And that's the system that works. So if you look on your compensation system, the more group volume you have, the higher your comp will be because you're being bumped into a higher level. So again, I'll just do this very slowly. If you have 100 people who are doing, let's say, an average install, right? And it generates on average 50 group volume per month. So 100 people in your network doing that, that will translate to 5,000 group volume points for you, right? 5,000 group volume points just for the referral system. Plus everyone's making cash commissions as well, right? So anyway, the group volume system is just how we get paid for building teams. I've heard that the Power Company of Canada is antagonistic to solar and will charge heavily to connect or push back to the grid. This is not true. It's regulated, and so again, they have no other choice but to allow for the install, to allow for power to be sold back into the grid. And so if you have more detailed question around that, again, you might send that to your upline leader. Upline leader would be an SFC or higher that then could work with you to find out if there's a particular company that's a problem. But we're dealing in Alberta with maybe about at least 10 different companies that are power companies, not just one. What is the turnaround time for a quote? Between 30 and 60 days. So that's pretty fast. Once the quote is in, 30 to 60 days for the install, and you get paid as soon as the install is completed. How will delivery or global adjustment fees be calculated in Ontario? That's a very technical question, and I don't know the answer. So I would say you want to make sure that you can communicate that question directly to Affiliate Solar. And so what about new houses without consumption records? That's a good question. Again, they will do an estimate based on the size of that house. And so there's more of a guessing game that goes around that, but it's not that hard. The new homes going up are extremely well insulated, and usually a lot less solar panel required to do the full coverage. And so, so they will do estimates based on other numbers. You just need to work with Affiliate Solar on that. Yes, you do keep current electrical carrier all year. So the carrier still allows you to be connected to the grid. So you're not off the grid unless you choose to be. You have to get your own batteries and everything else, and I don't know the other complexities in it. But it's encouraged that you stay connected to the grid because there might be certain months of the year you don't have quite enough electricity, and you'll be able to draw on the system during those times is good. What about being in the far north? Another great question. Fort McMurray area, and where it's cold winters. Well, that's interesting as well. I happen to know the answer to this question because it has nothing to do with the ambient temperature where you live. It's the hours of sunlight. So the challenge as you go further north is shorter days during the winter, but they generally make up for it by having clear, cold winters, right? So all those clear, sunny days lots of power can be generated. 50 below on a clear day is much better than 30 above on a cloudy day, right? So that's what I'm taught and told how this works. It's got nothing to do with ambient temperature. Can I refer someone in the U.S. With the Tranont Builder app? Donna, that's a great question. The answer, I believe, is yes. But why don't you try that out and see what happens? It might be that they have to become an affiliate. But as I understand, we can do referrals because I've asked that question relative to national processing, and the answer on that was yes. So I'm assuming the answer here is yes, but I'll caveat with I don't know for sure, okay? If you find an answer different than yes, please let me know. And this person has a small farm, and I was told that the product had to be bought outright before grant was available. So yes, there has to be product that you're selling, a total of $10,000 worth of product in order to qualify as a small farm. So I don't know more than that. So $10,000 worth of actual product that you're selling, that's a pretty small amount, so that's a very basic farm. Are there grants in Ontario? Huge grants available in Ontario. I don't know the detail of it, but again, you know, you can talk to Affiliate Solar. They'll be able to provide you with details. Installers in Saskatchewan, yes, we need some to provide contacts of potential master electrician installers to Affiliate Solar, and they'll be able to help get those guys lined up for Saskatchewan. Yes, of course, this does replace natural gas. Natural gas, okay, I'm not too sure of the question. Natural gas is considered a clean energy, but what we're talking about here is where these plants are being changed from being coal-fired to natural gas-fired. So it does, if I understand the question from Marilyn, will this replace natural gas? Also, the answer is no, okay? This is just electricity production. Now, it's theoretically possible that certain places can produce enough electricity to also be able to lower the natural gas needs of a household, but probably the math is it's best just to think about the electricity for now. I think you're paying pretty low prices for your natural gas for now. Yes, this is being recorded. It will be available. And there's a great, I'm going to actually cut and paste this. Actually, I'm going to have to send this out. It's from Barry, a connection on how excess is sold back to the grid in BC. So the answer is yes, it can be sold back into the grid. And then also want to mention, we will pay 1 cent more for solar than what the customer buys it. Oh, this is amazing, from Malcolm Setter. So switch up to Get Energy for your electrical needs, and they'll buy your excess electricity from you at a price higher than anybody else, okay? So look up Get Energy. This is for Alberta, Get Energy. And if you're going to switch up to solar, this is kind of ironic because I thought, Malcolm, okay, this is, you know, he's an electricity supplier here in Alberta as well as natural gas, really awesome utility provider from Fort Mac. And he said, no, this is great for our company, and it's just because he's thinking outside the box. And so tie in with Get Energy as your source supplier for electricity, and your extra electricity that you're producing, they'll pay you more for it, and maybe, who knows, it'll be a positive cash flow for you, and that'd be awesome. Are there municipal and local homeowners association bylaws that we have to be concerned with? You don't pull permits. You don't have to concern yourself with the permits. The contractor that's being hired by Affiliate Solar does the permits, and they'll know all the details around what is allowed. And homeowner association bylaws, of course, is a big challenge. But apartment owners would be, I think, very, very interested. I think it's going to be more challenging getting a condo association saying yes, but that would be probably a specific challenge is to try to get a group of owners to say yes to electricity all at the same time. But as far as the general question, municipal applications and permits, 100% fine. That's handled not by you and not by Affiliate Solar. That's handled by the contractor that they hire. So yes, my referral is actually paying me 50% cash and increasing my team's personal volume for monthly commissions. Well said. That's correct. I wish I would have said it that way. So yeah, you're getting 50% cash for the referral, and the rest is going into personal volume team for monthly qualifications and bonuses and all the rest of it. And only after the install, that's right. I'm just looking for any more questions. 30 to 60 days to receive a quote. No, the quote is much faster than that once the system is up and running. So again, if you're submitting an application right now, it's not going to be processed until starting in August. Okay, so starting in August, they're ready to do consumers. Right now, they just want a few more of us associates doing applications for our own house. So if you can do your own house right now, please do so. And if you have a bunch of customers and you're going to send in applications right now, in Canada, they're just going to sit on a stack for now because none of them are going to be processed. But once the system is up and running with financing in place, 100% financing in place, it typically takes about 2 weeks for an application to be processed and about 60 to 90 days for the install. Okay. Yes, we can do referrals anywhere in Canada now, so that's wide open for all of Canada. But the focus, again, August 1st is technically the start date, okay? Yes, if you're connected to the grid, you still are paying, there's a separate cost. So you're paying separately for the price of the infrastructure, right? So there's a company that built the electrical infrastructure, and we all pay for that. No matter who we buy the electricity from, we still have to pay for the infrastructure. And then once the infrastructure is, separate from that is the electrical thing. So you're still going to be paying that portion of the electrical bill, okay? And again, Solar Affiliate gets into all that detail. Solar, yeah, they'll get into all that detail. The main thing is do the referral, earn the 50% cash commission. Okay, that's the main thing to focus in on. And again, there's some really technical questions. For Ontario, I believe, send clients to OPO or IESO website to learn more about Ontario Solar Act. So there's some information. I'm going to make sure that Solar Affiliate has all that information. But again, the ideal thing, everyone, every province is different. Just feed the information to Affiliate Solar. And if you're from Ontario, familiarize yourself with the details about Ontario. Ontario is probably by far and away the hottest place to do this right now because of the huge grants and incentives they have. Okay, good. Maintenance, there's very little maintenance. It's under warranty, basically. There is no maintenance to speak of other than really, really basic, with the equipment, but it's all under warranty with 25 years. So the average homeowner will have nothing to do in terms of maintenance, possibly other than just to wash off the panels from time to time. I don't even think that's necessary if you live in a place with a decent amount of rain. Okay, thanks, Roy. There's a few other people, but I think these are all questions. And so this is really good. The last bit of advice that's being given to me by somebody that's doing a lot of referrals in Ontario is from Ontario. I'll send an email and follow up. If you're from Ontario, you want to familiarize yourself with the Ontario grants. If you're from Alberta, the Alberta grants. All the other provinces, do the research and help us gather the information. Feed the information to Tranont Affiliate Solar, and then once you know the deal for your province, you'll be able to know what angles to use with different people, right? So in Alberta, farms, fantastic. So basically, a typical farm install that I described would pay between $4,000 and $8,000 commission for one of those farm installs, right? So they get a huge grant. So the appeal for the farmer is they get 25% of their system installed and get them hooked up onto Get Energy. So now they get to sell into the grid through Get Energy. They're going to get extra money. And so the farm side is what we're going to do big time in Alberta because there's huge commissions. But in Ontario, you get farms and commercial and industrial. And I don't know the detail for other provinces. Let's just help Affiliate Solar gather that detail, and we're just going to build this out all across our country and all across the U.S. So the U.S., the information, of course, you already all had, but it's basically the same principle. In some states in the U.S., Affiliate Solar is very, very new. And so if they're new, there might be state incentives like they have in California. Feed that information to Affiliate Solar, so now you know it's going to be even better in the U.S. than it already is. In the U.S., in every corner of the U.S., it's as good as what you have in Ontario. So in the U.S., this is something everyone should be doing for sure because it's again, a huge cash commission. And we're just going to wrap up with this point here. In Canada, this is the first referral that we can bring to every household that we know. So the last thing I want to remind you of is, if you're going to do referrals, learn from the best and use the best of the referral system that we learned, for example, from John Singh last week. It was really good information that he shared with us. And that was, in fact, I'll send that link to everyone and follow up. Because he talked about his system for doing referrals, and that's it right there. Favor, why, help, try. You can talk to 10 people in August and get 3 or 4 installs, using this customer approach that John Singh taught us. So I'll send the link to everyone as well, the link for last Saturday's tutorial about customer acquisition with John Singh. It was the best training on how to do a referral. Use solar energy as maybe a lead referral, and also I'm using it for recruiting and building a team and right now because a lot of people are saying yes to Tranont because of this solar thing. They're saying, wow, that's an easy one to get excited about, right? So it's a little harder for most people to get excited about credit card processing. Solar energy and farms and commercial installs, and that's something thousands of people can be excited about. Invite people into the Tranont business and highlight solar energy as something that we can do. So that's the wrap up. Thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. I'll send you the link. I'll send you the replay on this, and also we'll send you the handouts. But I'm going to keep this open, so if you learn how to use the handout section, it'll be good for you because the fact is every webinar we always have great material in the handout section. If you tap into that, you can be an expert and you can really help your team to be on the cutting edge of knowing how to do this stuff. So be the leader and gather the information and be organized. And so I'll leave this all open for you to be able to tap into. Thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon.